Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to our explainer today. We're taking a super profound, highly structured look at the opening track of the Recollections of Introspection album. It's called Trapped V1, and honestly, it's an incredibly raw spoken word journey straight into the human psyche. We're going to break down exactly how the author uses vivid imagery, auditory cues, and shifting pacing to map out the frankly terrifying process of confronting buried trauma. So I've got to start by asking you the exact same question the artist asks right at the beginning of the track. How deep are you willing to go? Seriously, think about that for a second. Are you willing to go as deep as you're willing to know? Because this piece, it doesn't just invite you on a journey, it challenges you. It sets this immediate, incredibly atmospheric and suspenseful tone, letting us know right out of the gate that this isn't going to be a light or easy exploration. It's going to demand something from us. And that brings us to the actual descent. The speaker boldly declares, "As I pick up the shovel, no more scratching the surface." It's this sheer act of defiance against superficiality, right? They're choosing to do the grounding, heavy work. And what's absolutely fascinating here is the explicitly mentioned musical backdrop for this moment. It's a modernized version of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Just imagine those iconic, haunting piano keys playing while the speaker metaphorically picks up a shovel, prepping to dig into this unknown, dark place in their own mind. Let's move to and see how this builds. We've got a timeline with 4 distinct moments here. First, the shovel. Second, the rumble. Third, the deprivation room. And finally, the spark. We're going to track the brutal physical toll of this deep psychological dive. So, as the deep dive begins, the speaker is descending into this totally unknown place. And it's terrifying. In fact, the speaker admits they keep telling themselves to stop. But there's this stubborn inner voice that absolutely demands they continue. You know, it's that classic duality of introspection. Part of you just wants to stay safe up on the surface, but another part just refuses to leave the work unfinished, even when things get overwhelmingly dark. And man, it gets incredibly dark. As they dig deeper, the author creates this visceral, almost horrifying auditory experience. The speaker says they can literally hear the screams of lives lost, stating, "I can feel the moment connection was lost with a soul." We aren't just thinking about memories anymore. We're actively unearthing them. As a listener, you're pulled right into the intense gravity and sensory overload of touching these painful, deeply buried moments from the past. Now, the consequence of digging this deep without a safety net is that, well, the walls eventually give out. We transition from the act of digging to the physical sensation of the mind literally collapsing. The speaker describes a sudden rumbling, a violent shaking, and then just nothing. A brief pause before an inevitable massive boom. Everything begins to crumble rapidly. These memories aren't just thoughts anymore. They become physical debris falling right in the speaker's path, making them stumble as they frantically try to run. This brings us to a really crucial metaphor in the track, the deprivation room. The cave-in is complete. The speaker is totally trapped. They explicitly note feeling the full weight of every past event, and it's just too heavy. They didn't mean to be buried by these memories, but now there's no light, there's no sound, and absolutely no way to know where to go. It is the absolute peak of isolation, brilliantly compared to being sealed inside a sensory deprivation room. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the artist engineered the audio performance itself using explicit stage directions right in the text. We see 2 distinct performance notes here. First, we get a cue for the speaker to be, quote, frantically speaking as self-doubt creeps up. Then there's a deliberate tone shift noted where self-doubt settles in. It's literally a masterclass in shifting the emotional weight from this frantic, high-anxiety panic attack into a heavy, crushing fatigue. Following that first direction, the frantic anxiety just kicks into overdrive. The questions start firing off rapidly in the dark. What if this is all there is? What's the point of this deep dive? The speaker's mind is racing a million miles a minute, desperately trying to find some logical reason for putting themselves through this voluntary psychological torture. And the frantic momentum keeps pushing, bringing up these profound feelings of injustice. Is it not enough I went through it and barely survived? I mean, you can feel the absolute desperation here. It highlights this deep, very human resistance to processing past trauma. The speaker survived the event in reality, so the mind is violently rebelling against having to survive the memory of it all over again in the pitch black. Capping off this rapid-fire sequence is the ultimate plea. Why must I relive the torture? Why can't I just live my life? These questions perfectly illustrate a mind that is rapidly deteriorating under the crushing thoughts of its own past. The anxiety is peaking, the walls have completely caved in, and the speaker is practically begging for a way out of the work they started. And then the tone shift hits. The panic fades into pure, heavy exhaustion. Self-doubt settles in. The speaker notes they barely survived these events when they were at their absolute physical and mental peak, so how on earth can they face it now in a state of sheer fatigue? The lyrics slow way, way down to reflect this. My body aches, my bones bleed, deteriorating mind's physique. They compare holding up these heavy thoughts to weightlifting, feeling a brutal burn, like a third-degree burn. The emotional burden has become entirely physical. But right at the moment of total collapse, a turnaround happens. Amidst the dead silence of that deprivation room, there's a faint, muffled echoing. It's a pulse of defiance. The speaker outright refuses to leave this dimension incomplete. They decide to rise up and overthrow these worthless tyrants, which they define as all the internal demons left behind from past violence. The pace reinvigorates, that inner drive just wakes right up. So the crucial point is how the speaker weaponizes this defiance. They yell, "Enough is enough, face everything and rise." It's such a brilliant reimagining of the word fear. Instead of letting fear be the thing that keeps them paralyzed in that dark room, they turn it into an acronym, a literal, actionable command to summon their inner drive. Face everything and rise. And this beautifully illustrates the next sequence, where the speaker uses a step-by-step botanical metaphor to orchestrate their escape. Step 1, get a hand back on that shovel and stick it in the ground. Step 2, pull back, propel, and pull the memories directly from the earth. Step 3, plant their feet to grow roots. And step 4, sprout. They are literally using the dirt of their traumatic memories, the exact things that buried them alive, as the soil to grow and sprout back toward the surface. It is incredibly powerful. Now, as this escape is happening, look at how the author explicitly details the technical production notes directly in the source text. The author shows us exactly how the audio effects should map to the emotional climax. Words placed in parentheses, like the word alive, get an echo effect. Words in brackets, like propel, receive reverb or a slight delay. These aren't just formatting choices, right? They're literal instructions for the spoken word performance, entirely designed to make the listener feel the vast, cavernous space of the mind as the speaker finally breaks free. As they rise, the speaker reflects on the agonizing, deeply isolating nature of surviving trauma. They tell the listener, into a mind with a shattered soul, you can never fully understand death's grim hold. They speak of the heavy pain of being the last one left, of getting to grow old after watching others fall. It's this profound survivor's guilt, a massive burden of witnessing things unfold and desperately wishing to bring back the lost and rid the pain. Which brings us to the volatile climax. The mind is pushed to its absolute brink. Trying to hold on to all this pain and process it makes the mind feel as though it might completely implode. The speaker describes slowly losing control and beginning to unload. The imagery shifts sharply here. The mind is no longer a cave. It's now described as being like gasoline poured around exposed wires. It is highly reactive, super dangerous, and right on the razor's edge. And that leads us to the hauntingly triumphant final line of our explainer today. A small spark is all that's needed to explode. After digging through the dirt, surviving the cave-in, and turning fear into a literal tool for growth, the speaker realizes the immense, volatile power contained within their own mind. It leaves us with a profound question to walk away with. When you finally confront your own internal room full of gas, will that inevitable spark destroy you, or will it be the exact explosion you need to finally break free? Thank you so much for diving deep with me today.